Greetings, everyone. I hope I can interest you in this topic because I think it can't just be me that think about these things. And every day that you wake up, when you open your eyes, you have to give thanks. Just give thanks for that very moment because things could change so much throughout the course of the day. And you give thanks for that moment and you give thanks for every moment of that day. And when you lay down to rest at night, you give thanks and you pray and hope and, you know, ask that you see the next day because nothing is really guaranteed. In general, we all face all kinds of disappointments in our life. And the question is, how do you cope? How do you cope with these disappointments? How do you move from that point where you're low, you have sunk low because of whatever reason, and how do you move from that to overcoming that situation and claiming victory? So the general topic here is about seeking answers to life problems through meditation. I have some notes over on the side here because I don't want to forget anything. So how do you go about dealing with life circumstances? How do you go about dealing with disappointments in self or other people? How do you cope? Because I think the difference between the ones who are able to overcome these trials and those who succumb to them is having the ability to step away from whatever it is that you're facing and to deal with that through meditation or prayer, whatever method you use. Now, I have subsections here. So when we're talking about fighting battles, we all have different battles in our life that we have to face. Some health, some wealth, some personal weaknesses that we want to overcome. And in fighting these daily battles or yearly battles, some of us, get to the point where like we give up and we become hopeless, or we just accept the thing in our life that we don't really want, or we're not able to get rid of those demons that seem to plague you year after year, generation after generation. How do you first confront these demons and how do you get rid of them and how do you address health issues and how do you deal with the issue of wealth and what does wealth mean for you anyway? Because I think wealth means different things for different people. So for some people, being in good health is wealth. And then let's look at facing judgment, whether it be judicial, whether it be generational curse, whether it be persecution. And you can be persecuted for no apparent reason. You could just be going about your business, and because you're always smiling, someone hates you and you're persecuted by other people who just envy you for your smile. And then we're talking about having dominion in our life. Many of us, we just kind of go through life and just go where the wind takes us and, move with the ebb and the tide of life. But we don't have the power to demand change in our life. And so we just go where the wind blows. In order to conquer any area that I've discussed here, whether it be fighting battles or when you're facing judgment or when you want to take dominion over things, all of these things require a deeply spiritual understanding of how you as a person need to go through all these different things in life and in not just coping with it, but overcoming it. And I think that everything that happens to you has its purpose. It only happens to you because I think the universe is asking you to step up your game, to strengthen you in one form or the other. So, how do I cope with fighting battles, health or wealth, for example? And I have a slew of health concerns. And for the typical person, um, they just succumb to these and they claim these health concerns as their own. My whichever sickness you have or whichever battle you face, you claim it as your own. I don't claim any sickness. That's why I might mention it here and there, but I don't claim it. So even though I may speak about being allergic to the cold, I'm not really claiming it, or allergic to this or that kind of food. I'm not claiming it. I just mention it because, there are other persons who are going through the same thing too. For me, I don't think man can cure me. I don't think medicine that is not from the earth, something I could pick off a tree or something that I could juice from a plant or from a fruit, can assist me. And so I have this deep belief, this deep spiritual belief that whatever illness that is in my body, oftentimes is as a result of how I have dealt with stress in my life and how I have chosen, because it's really a choice, how I have chosen to allow these changes in my life to get the better of me. And once I understand that whatever sickness is manifested in my life is as a result of how I have coped or my lack of coping. And so I just have to find a way to roll back from that and to realign myself with nature. And I don't try to take drugs to aid in my healing, because every single time I've done it, even recently, every time I've done that, I've always had to go back to nature for the healing. And usually when I take drugs from the doctor, it's because fear steps in. Now, for example, I had this terrible cold or cough that wasn't going away, and I think fear allowed me to take those medication, but it didn't help. Eventually, I had to go back to nature, and that's what cured me. Going to the hospital, you saw clips of that, going to the doctor, and none of these guys were able to help me until I got to the point. I spent a day and I said, okay, talk to me and tell me what I need to do. Man has never been able to help me with anything. It's always spiritual guides or guidance that has helped me. And so when I go back, um, pneumonia or bronchitis, none of those stuff that they gave me was helping until I asked nature to help me. And you know what cured me? That cough that lasted for 6 weeks, that no drugs could help. It was just ginger and lemon slices with hot water. And none of the medication that I got from the hospital or from the doctor did not assist me at all. Just nature cured me. So when we have these health battles, you have to then go back and ask nature to assist you. I asked nature to assist me, and after about 2 days, I was better. What 6 weeks of medication couldn't help, nature was able to help me with that. And I wasn't able to do that on my own. I had to surrender. I had to go inside and I had to say, okay, please tell me how to take care of this. One, facing judgment. I've shared over the years different battles that I've had or judgment that I've had, whether it be judicial or personal. Um, and in every circumstance that I can think of over the years, all these judgments that I faced, all looking at generational curse or looking at persecution, every single circumstance, every single episode, every single time in my life when I face judgment, no one can help me. Have you ever been in a situation where you're going through something and you got your best friends or you have your family who you can talk to, you can confide in to help you get over whatever? And for some reason, when the crisis is happening, you pick up the phone and no one is available. Because a lot of times the universe is asking that we deal with these things on our own. Sometimes we have wonderful friends in our life that we love, and all of a sudden something strange happens, and that relationship just, there it's not that you don't love each other anymore, but you're separated, and you're forced to deal with that situation that you need to deal with. Dealing with generational curse. Many of us, especially people of color, I can't speak for other people again, but a lot of us have these generational curses. When you look at our lives and see how many of us find ourselves in financial bondage or find ourselves in what is seen as poverty, and you look back over your family's history, and all you can see is pure suffering, you must understand that it can be broken. And yes, it's not going to be broken overnight, but you have to have mindfulness to at least recognize that there is a problem. There's an inherent problem in my life or in my family's life, and I need to separate myself from the world, separate myself from people, and find a way to break this so it doesn't carry on to my children or my children's children. And then knowing that we have dominion over all things, we really do have dominion. That's the difference between the person who everybody writes off and says, you know, you're dying. The doctor says you're going to live a few days, and that person is able to look at that doctor, that team of doctors, and say, who are you? I don't want you working for me, because you have to know when to get rid of people who speak a kind of truth into your life that you don't want. A kind of, like the doctor will say, you know, you have 6 months to live. Well, the moment you start to take that into your spirit, that is exactly what's going to happen. But the person who rebels against it and says, who are you to tell me how long I have to live? You know, and reject that. And I've seen that happen over the years. People getting marked off by doctors or professionals in the area of medicine. And that person who they deliver that news to says, whatever, forbid. I will live. And I've lived past some of the very persons who have pronounced that kind of, you know, judgment upon them. I think all of us have to spend time in meditation, and we have to find ways how to dedicate our time, ourselves, to being better people spiritually. It's not easy. It comes with practice. It comes with discipline, because there's so many things in our life that are idols: food, sex, money, social media, whatever it is that has a hold of you, a grasp of you, that if you were stranded on an island, you'd feel like you're lost without it. That becomes an idol in your life. And so, in order for you to meditate, you have to then agree to separate yourself from these things that you are weak to. And so that's why from time to time, I will say I'm not going to go on the internet for a period of time. I'm not going to, you know, it could be food that I set aside. It could be just having conversation with people, just isolating myself, spending time alone with myself and trying to find out answers. So there was a very disappointing event in my life recently, unexpected. And when it did occur, like I say to all of you, that there is hardly anything that is about to happen in my life that I don't see before it happens. But in that case, the same day, hours before it occurs, when I saw, and I wasn't very clear. I wasn't quite clear because it came in codes. I had a dream, and it was in codes, and I didn't know exactly how to interpret it. But hours later, it was interpreted, and I felt a bit disappointed. You know, I went down this journey with someone, and you know, I had no idea that this journey was going to end when it did end. And I was feeling a bit disappointed. I looked around, and I didn't see that my day didn't look the same anymore. I wasn't following the same routine anymore. And I was starting to feel depressed about it, you know, asking question, why did this happen? And is this how this is supposed to be? And I always look at myself and say, did I do something to bring that on? And for example, if I'm working somewhere and I get fired, the first thing I start to do is search myself to say, is there any time I put this out in the universe that I didn't want that job? Is there any time, and just don't have to be, I've been fired once in my life, so it's not like a thing that I'm used to, but companies close down and I get laid off or whatever. I always examine myself to say, did I ever do anything, or did I ever say anything, whether it be inside or outside myself, to cause the universe to think this is what I wanted. And then if the answer is no, and I usually when I have a job, I try to treat it in such a way that I say, you know what, this is a blessing, and I'm not going to spend one day taking disadvantage of this blessing. I'm going to be thankful for it, and I'm going to operate in a way to show that I'm grateful. And so if that is taken from me, I immediately always go back and look to say, did I put that out there somehow? Was that a part of my creation that this would occur? And if my answer to myself is no, then I start welcoming that decision, and I start thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm going to go in another direction. I'm not sure what it is right now, but in the meantime, I am praying, I'm seeking for direction. And if I don't want that thing to keep happening, I have to ask for dominion over this thing, where when I get started on something, it doesn't get taken away from me unless it's prepared me for something better or something greater in my life. So I don't think I could go through a month or 2 months without getting to a point where I'm like slowing down and spending some time, spending some time searching for meaning, trying to make sense of the things that are happening in my life. YouTube has been a blessing in many regards because it allowed me to talk about problems that I was having in my life, things that I was causing me hurt, and meeting like mind, and also growing. Some of the topics I've done have been quite controversial, but I believe that those topics had to be done because there were other individuals who needed to hear that message. I don't want to spend too much time, crying about spilled milk. I want to spend time understanding why the milk is spilled. So I'm not saying, okay, crying, it's already spilled. The change have come. Changes will come into your life. And instead of just dwelling on the fact that there was a change, find out why the change came, and learn from it and be blessed by it. Because at the end of the day, all things work together for good. That's one of my favorite expressions. But what I want to tell you is that meditation, some of you believe in fasting and prayer, whatever it is that work for you, taking yourself away, sacrificing things that you love, and spending time in deep meditation, in prayer, and reflection, introspection, looking inside. But sort of asking for deeper, truly deeply spiritual understanding, so you can make these breakthroughs. So you're not crying about people who are removed from your life, who are not meant to be in your life forever, or understanding about forgiveness, because that's very difficult. Part of forgiveness is allowing yourself to be blessed, because when you're not forgiving, and I have problems. I struggle with forgiveness sometimes because I have this thing where you bite me and you're not getting closer to bite me anymore. And in that, sometimes there's a bit of unforgiveness there. Because for me, once I hold this thing in me where I'm like holding you, far away from me, there's a bit of unforgiveness in there, because I feel like if I forgive you, I'm going to allow you to come too close to me again. And sometimes we just have to let that go. We do. We all have the power to overcome all circumstances, all situation in our life, but we can't do it alone. And we have to accept and acknowledge that there is something bigger than us, bigger than ourselves. So, in seeking answers to your life problems, it's very important to take time away from the things that you are weak to, or the things that you love so much, and you have to surrender that. You have to give up something in order to get something. It's always the case, and it's the same. It's true with finding spiritual growth. If you are someone who believes in fasting and prayer, or you believe in meditation in whichever form, make a comment here and tell me how you cope with life changes, how you see life circumstances occurring in your life Is it something that you think is there to build your character, or is it something that you just allow to break you? Stay blessed, everybody.